Are you looking for answers to the unknown? Welcome to Live with Medium Lisa Phoenix and step into the magical presence of the metaphysical realm. Lisa will share the wisdom and musings from her own experiences, have intriguing conversations with other mediums and healers, in addition to exploring a wide array of topics and teachings on intuitive and mediumship development. Lisa will be taking your calls and inviting your friends and loved ones in the spirit world to share their stories with us. Raise your awareness as you are reunited on the level of love, and let's go live with Medium Lisa Phoenix.
Everybody, happy Sunday. It's a cloudy day in Southern California. Welcome to the Live with Lisa Phoenix radio show. I'm Lisa Phoenix, your host, a medium and energy intuitive. My show is all about healing, mediumship, and energy management. And I'm going to be talking about mediumship today, as well as other things, with my special guest, David Scott, intuitive medium and teacher. If you want further information about the Live with Lisa Phoenix radio show, please visit my page on the OMTimes radio site at OMTimes/host/Lisa Phoenix. And you're also welcome to go to my website at lisaphoenix.net. That's LISAPHOENIX.net. Or email me directly at info@lisaphoenix.net. I would love it if you would go to my website once again, lisaphoenix.net, and sign up for my Intuitive Insights newsletter, which will also add you to my mailing list. And please like me on Facebook at Lisa Phoenix Live. Now, let's make this all about David Scott for a moment.
Good morning, good afternoon. It's afternoon here, so.
Yes, welcome to the show. How are you this morning, David?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, it's great to have you. Now, David's mediumship is very much a ministry to assist those in gaining clarity and insight as they embark on their own spiritual quest and understanding. He strives to make personal connection and give attention to those that are destined to receive messages. Not only does he minister to others, but he's an ambassador for spirit and communicates on their behalf. David has been ministering to others as an intuitive medium since 2008. He has made a commitment that he would like to use this wonderful yet fragile universal gift to work with people more and on different levels. He feels drawn to teach others with his mediumship ability as well as how to use their own gifts. In 2011, he launched his first mediumship workshop, The 5 C's of Mediumistic Discovery. David is also currently facilitating a monthly mediumship development circle at numerous locations throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And in 2013, he launched his beginner's workshop, Mediumship, Taking Your First Step. David has appeared on several radio talk shows and television news, and in December 2014, he made an appearance on the paranormal reality television series, The Dead Files Revisited, on the Travel Channel, where he assisted with a follow-up investigation. Wow, David, you got a lot going on there.
You're such a good PR person, man. I love that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Now, can you just, for people who don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit more in depth as far as what you're all about?
I will. I've realized that I had a gift of mediumship as a young child, but, I didn't embrace it, of course, back in those days. And, I was brought up in a very conservative Christian home, and we didn't talk about those kind of things. And, and I knew that it existed even from a very, very young age of like 4 or 5. I knew that there was something going on and, with my quote unquote imaginary friends. But I really didn't start embracing my mediumship until about 15, 16 years ago. And, I think that spiritual gifts, regardless of what they are, I think that they come to you and you embrace them when the time is correct. And I just felt at that time in my life, it was time for me to embrace this, look at it a little more in-depthly, have a better understanding of it, and, start to use it to be of service to spirit and, of course, to others. So it's been an amazing journey and an amazing awakening.
Gotcha. And you do private readings and sittings in person,
I do.
Skype? How do you?
Absolutely. I do private sittings here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I do those, out of my home and other places. I was actually working in a shop yesterday here, Miracles of Joy Spiritual Center in Louisville, and I was reading all day there yesterday. And then I am do them out of my home, and I will do Skype calls. I'll talk to people all over the country via Skype. I love the whole medium of Skype. I think it's just wonderful to be able to have a video call with somebody and do a sitting for them and be able to look at them. You know what I mean? I just think it's wonderful technology.
Yes, it is. It really is awesome. Now, your website is davidscottpsychic.com, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'd love for all you listeners to go check it out. And tell us for a minute about the show you were on. The reality show?
Yes, it's actually, this is a good time of year to talk about that, isn't it? We're getting close to Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a remarkable opportunity to be on the Dead Files on the Travel Channel, and this was actually happened almost about 2 years ago now. And I had the producers actually from LA out there where you are. They found me on the internet, and they called me, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of a follow-up investigation that they were doing at a haunted restaurant here in Waxahachie, Texas, which is about an hour from where I'm at. And and I said, yeah, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to do that. So they watched all my videos on my website and read my website, and he said, you just look like you're perfect for this. And so I went down, and we actually filmed this in November of 2013, and it didn't air until a year later. And it was a remarkable experience. I don't do many paranormal things. I'm more, of a medium to give messages to people and whatnot, but I just thought this would be a good opportunity to do this and get a little exposure in the media. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, Brian, the producer, was just wonderful to work with, and I keep in touch with him. And they got me in their back pocket for future things, so I'm feel very privileged about that. And it's the Catfish Plantation restaurant, and it's one of the older restaurants in the Waxahachie, Texas area. And it's the restaurant is in an old home, and there was a lot of activity that went on in that home. So, people had died in that home, and there were some murders that took place around the area where the home is. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of activity there. And, I think that, hauntings is still something that I think we're all trying to get our mind around. I don't think we understand it 100%, and so I went in and just did my thing. And I sat in the stillness and sat in that power for a few minutes before I started working. And then I just started moving around, and the camera crew and everybody was just following me around with the lights and everything. And I was there working with the owner of the restaurant, Sean Sparks, and we just walked around, and they followed me around, and the filming took about 4 hours. And of course they edited it down to about 3 minutes of airtime. So
welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful experience. And, that restaurant is particularly busy around this time of year because it has that reputation for being haunted. And so people are wanting to go down there around Halloween time, and check it out. And
yes. And speaking of Halloween time, it's that time of the year, when the veil is at its thinnest, and with all the crazy weather and everything else we're having lately, I get a sense I feel like it's getting thinner. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean as far as the veil?
Yeah.
Yeah. This definitely is a great time of year for spirit communication. And, Halloween is based on, the pagan holiday of Samhain. It's pronounced Samhain. Some people pronounce it Samhain, the way it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And, this is when it's a time to honor your ancestors that are in spirit. I mean, this is what the holiday is actually about.
Yes.
And, I wrote in my newsletter for this month of October, I always like to talk about, Halloween and Samhain and the veil being thin, because I have, several people, clients and students, that ask me about, can you communicate with your own ancestors, because it's hard to be objective.
Right.
When you're getting information from your own loved ones because you know about them in your conscious mind already. So I think I think we have that connection with our family I think we're back.
We are. Sorry, folks. We had some technical difficulties there. But I think it might have taken us past the commercial break. Oh, no, here it comes. All right. So we're going off to commercial break. Folks, stay tuned with us. And you're on the OMTimes Radio Network with my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everybody. You're live with Medium Lisa Phoenix and my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. So, we happened to be talking about the veil, and then poof.
Right. Maybe that was spirit.
Playing around with us, huh? So the last thing I recall, you had started to talk about how people could contact their loved ones on their own. And right. I'm a real big believer in that. And yes, I agree with you that you're not always objective, but you know what? You can connect with them. And I really get it that a lot of times you can at least feel their presence. Do you know?
Absolutely. And I was working yesterday with folks one-on-one, and and I actually had a conversation with one of my clients, and we were talking about this. And, as I was saying, before we had our little snafu there, we have those soul-to-soul connections with people, and we establish those before they actually pass. And so when they go to the spirit world, your soul is still very much a part of connection with their soul. And I told people, you may not necessarily hear a message through a medium maybe, but be aware of things going on around you, because your loved ones will let you know that they're around in many different ways. They can use music. I'm a big believer in them using music, when
so songs, am I.
Yeah. Songs come on the radio, to remind you of them. And
well, and also you're sitting there and you're kind of talking and you're, thinking about something, and then boom, on comes this song,
right.
know?
Right.
I definitely. And what are some of the other examples?
I think, you've got that, and then people are like, well, I always see my loved ones and hear them in my dreams, and that's such a common way for spirit to communicate with us, because, spirit communicates with us in our subconscious. And when we're sleeping, our conscious mind is shut down and out of the way. And that's kind of spirit's way of saying, oh, there's my time. There's my opportunity. I'm going to come in and I'm going to talk to these folks while they're asleep. And, so I always have clients and people tell me, that they've dreamt about their loved ones in spirit. And I truly believe that is spirit communicating with you, when you're asleep. I so believe that.
Oh, I do too. And I also, yeah, for me, I find too, if I'm having a dream and it's an actual spirit communication, when I look at the eyes of like my loved one, they just look like really alive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had just like in the last couple of weeks, I've had, both my parents are in the spirit world, and I've had, dreams about them. And, and I've got a really great story to tell you about spirit communication. And I know that we haven't talked about this, prior to the show, but
that's okay.
I was down in Houston, the Houston area at the end of September. And I was teaching a workshop down there and doing a platform demonstration down there that weekend. And I came home on Saturday evening after the workshop was over, and it's like a 4-hour drive from Houston to the DFW area. And I am a big lover of old music. And I was listening to the 60s channel on Sirius because I love that period of music. And there is a DJ named Cousin Brucey who broadcasts from New York, and he always lets people call in and request songs. And I thought, what the heck? I'm on the on the road here for 4 hours, and I got my Bluetooth. I'm going to call him and ask him for a song. So, and I'd been thinking about my dad all that day. He had just been in my mind, and I felt like my dad was there when I was working. And I called and I requested a song, because my father was in the gospel music business for 20 some odd years back in the 60s and the 70s. And he sang in a group called the Cathedral Quartet. And I just, we always used to sing together as a family as well. And, because I have a singing background as well. And there's nothing like that sound of family harmony. So I asked for them to play the Cowsills, if you're familiar with who the Cowsills were or who they are. And there's a song called The Rain, the Park, and Other Things. And it's a family group.
Gotcha.
And so I asked for that song, and I said, I want to dedicate this to all the, singing families out there. And I kind of told the DJ about my dad and everything. So he played the song, and then all day that day too, I had on my mind, my dad used to, when I was very, very little, he used to say, will you sing the song Winchester Cathedral for me? There was a song in the 60s called Winchester Cathedral. And I loved that when I was like 5 years old, and I used to walk around the house singing it all the time. And my dad would always, prompt me to sing that because he thought it was funny. And that had been on my mind all day long. And then about 30 minutes later, a woman called in from Minnesota. And of course, I had no idea who she was. And she requested that song.
Wow.
And she said... And the DJ said, well, who do you want to send that out to? And she says, I want to send that out to David, whose dad sang in the cathedrals. I almost had to pull over.
Oh, wow.
And I just felt like that was my dad letting me know, yeah, I'm around today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was a perfect example of how they try to communicate with you.
Exactly.
And I literally started crying, and I almost did have to pull over because it was just that emotional to me, So,
Yes. And that brings up another good point. When you're looking for communication from your loved ones, look at the synchronicities around you that happen. I always kind of tell my clients that.
Yes, I do the same. The music, of course, we've talked about. You pull open a drawer and you see a personal item of theirs, or there's a photograph of them that you haven't seen in a long time.
Right.
And it's just, to me, that is just their way of letting you know, we are around. We are around, and we're going to be around, and I think that's just beautiful. I think that's lovely,
Yeah. And also too, I mean, for me, like, I find my mom helping me in the kitchen. I mean, I'm not a good cook. I'm terrible. So I do need a lot of help in the kitchen. But I sense her energy there. And I also, and again, think of the things that your family members love to do. Because also the other thing is when I'm shopping, when I'm bargain shopping, there's my mom. Because that's what she was so big for in life. And I'll be like walking down. It's like I'll be directed over here. It's like, gosh, cool. Thanks, Mom.
So she's still helping you with the bargains, even
yeah.
in right?
that was her thing,
Right,
and
right.
so, but, and again, for some of you men out there, sometimes, if you had, a dad or a loved one who's really handy or some, you'll feel them when you're doing stuff.
Right.
Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. And that's why I think when I'm doing my work now, particularly when I'm teaching workshops and, demonstrating and that kind of thing, sometimes like my grandfather, on my mother's side, who was very intuitive, actually. My family never used the word psychic or mediumship or anything like that. They always considered them to be gifts from God, which indeed they are. And, my grandfather was very mediumistic. And, my grandmother passed before he did, and he would talk about seeing her in the middle of the night and talking to her. And, he just had an intuitiveness about him. And, my grandfather has come through to some of my students on numerous occasions, and they brought the evidence through, and the evidence has been dead on. So I feel like he kind of works with me in that respect,
Right.
And I just think that, whatever you are doing during the course of the day or whatnot, your loved ones are only a breath away. It's just amazing, to know that they're there and that they will make themselves known to you in many ways.
And yes, and let's get a little practical here, because we had also talked about, aside from looking for the signs, we also talked about how people can sit and connect with their loved ones themselves. So can you give people some advice on how to do that?
Absolutely. And people that are working with their mediumship, and I know you understand this because you and I have trained at the same place in the UK, and, sitting for spirit and sitting in the power, and it's about sitting in that stillness and building that power around you, your own soul power, and having an understanding of that soul power, and then inviting spirit to come and be in that power with you so that blending does take place, and that's something that we as mediums do on a daily basis. But, we also, I believe people can just do that to contact their loved ones. I don't think that everybody has the gift of mediumship. I think everybody has psychic ability. But I do feel that people can connect to their loved ones in that way because, as we talked about earlier, that soul-to-soul connection exists. Yeah. And, I always tell people to sit in stillness and sit in quiet and, no music, because then it turns into kind of meditation if you've got the music on.
Right.
And and just put that intention out there that you would like to connect or make themselves known to you. And I've had people come back to me, that I've suggested this to, and they're like, yeah, I could really feel my loved one there. And I did get some messages from them, through vision and sound and, that type of thing. So I think if people just quiet the mind and get the conscious mind out of the way, then they can be aware of their loved ones,
Yes. And I also think it's a good way to also kind of confirm, because I get a lot of clients that come to me and it's like, well, I think I felt them. Well, I think, because they really are feeling them. But I think it's a good way to just stop and take the time. And then you can confirm that for yourself as well, that, yes, you really are feeling them when you're, doing whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so let's talk a little bit about for those who, let's say, are more experienced with mediumship. What do you suggest for them as far as furthering their own development? And we talked about sitting in the power, which is one great way.
Right. The sitting, to me, Lisa, and of course we've talked about this already, to me is, it's paramount in a medium's development, because, sitting every day for about 15 minutes in that power is your time to build that relationship with spirit.
Yes.
So that you can work as a communicator. And, so we've talked about that a little bit. And I think people need to gain an understanding, and this is what I try to teach in my circles and my workshops, the difference between meditation and sitting in the power. It's two different things. And, meditation is more about being inward and working with ourselves inwardly.
Right.
Sitting in the power is about expressing our soul outward and then asking spirit to come and be in that power with us. And it's got a whole different feeling from, meditation. But that is, those are the things that my teachers taught me. And I think that sitting is such an important part of that development. The next thing, trust. We have to trust what we're getting. And, I had a woman say to me yesterday that was working with her mediumship, because I gave her a spiritual assessment yesterday, and she's like, I'm afraid of people telling me no,
Right. Hey, I'm going to have to step in here for a minute because we're coming to another commercial break.
Sounds
but
perfect.
Hold that thought, because we'll pick up right there when we come back.
Perfect.
You're live with Lisa Phoenix, everybody, and my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. You're on the OMTimes Radio Network, and we'll be right back.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
If you've ever said, I do want it all. I do want happiness. I do want love. And I do desire the happily ever after fairy tale life, then this show is for you. Join me, Dana Nicole Brandon, for my internationally acclaimed show, Bridal Talk Radio, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where I'll bring you the top experts in the fields of communication, money, relationships, finance, pleasure, play, travel, sexuality, parenting, real estate, adventure, comfort, care, passion, and love.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everybody. You're live with Lisa Phoenix on the OMTime Radio Network and my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. So, David, let's pick up where we left off, if I can speak.
Right.
Talking about mediumship and how to further one's development.
Right. We were talking about trust, and so many people say that are developing their mediumship, I'm so afraid of somebody telling me no, they don't understand what I'm giving them. And really in the grand scheme of things, how bad can that really be? I mean, all they can really say to you is no, and actually I look at those kind of opportunities as stretching myself and developing myself even further. Because, when we learn to trust what Spirit is giving us, it's all about still working about getting that conscious mind out of the way so that, we can communicate with them. And generally, in my own mediumship, what I've learned is, if I give a piece of evidence and I have somebody say, no, I don't understand that, then I generally will go back to Spirit and ask them again, they don't understand, so give me something else that's going to help clarify what you're giving to me. And generally the second time out of the gate, I'll be okay.
Right. Because no's are not usually no's. They're just either, sometimes the information coming through is maybe kind of not put together properly. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
sometimes it just needs a little bit more clarification.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're dealing, trust, the big T, it's, and it's a process. And what helps is really practice, and again,
correct.
sitting and that blending with spirit, because the more time you spend blending with spirit, the easier it is for them to kind of merge with you when you're actually doing mediumship.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Oops, sorry.
No, I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, because the sitting again, and I know I keep falling back to the sitting, but the sitting is to me the root of this whole thing. And the more you spend time with spirit in that sitting and that power every day, the clearer that communication will become, because you learn how they communicate with you and how they present information to you, and you learn what your perceptive states and your psychic gifts are, because each medium is going to have a different way of receiving information. I'm very clairvoyant and clairaudient. They will show me what they look like, and of course they'll show me little pictures and things or whatnot, for evidence. But then they will also start talking to me, and I will have this sense of inner hearing with them. And some mediums are purely clairsentient, where they feel spirit and they feel the information. So.
Right.
And I know you and I have had conversations about this before, and I believe that's how you say you really get a lot of your information.
Yeah, my strongest is my clairsentience.
Yeah.
And, my hearing and my claircognizance follow that, and then my clairvoyance.
Right. Yeah, and it's, and as we sit with spirit every day and build that relationship with them, then that becomes clearer as to how that communication takes place with them. And and that's, to me, trust, to begin to be able to trust what you're getting is, again, all about, that relationship that you have with them.
Yeah. And I really believe too, it's kind of like as you sit and they merge with you and you feel the blending with them, or however you perceive it, if you get so comfortable like that. And the other thing is, you can't be too hard on yourself, because you have to think about it. If you spend the time sitting there blending with spirit and getting that, so it's like second nature to you, and then you walk in, you're bringing in a third energy, which would be your sitter, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so it's kind of like, if you're like, all good between you and spirit and you know what to expect, then it doesn't get so crazy when you're bringing in that third energy.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally 100% agree with you. It takes time to be able to understand, and I love the fact that you're talking about merging, because it takes time to understand where that blending takes place. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I've been working on my mediumship for many, many years now, and I was just explaining to my students last week that I really have only felt comfortable with my blending here in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's trial and error. It's experimentation, because, mediumship is about experimenting as well, different ways to connect and blend. And, it took me a while to understand where that meeting place happened, because spirit speaks to us in our subconscious, and, we're in the conscious world. They're in the superconscious world, and we have to raise our vibration to that subconscious level, moving our conscious mind out of the way, and then they have to lower their vibration to that level, because they're one vibration, they're one level up.
Right.
So then you have to figure out where that convergence takes place in that subconscious realm, and it took me a while to figure that out. And I'm just now, like I said, in the last 2 or 3 years, feeling comfortable with that. And I have to give credit to an amazing teacher that I had at the Arthur Findlay College in the UK, which I know you have studied there as well. And the gentleman's name is Glenn Edwards, and he was just paramount in helping me understand where that soul convergence took place with me in spirit. And he got me there, and this was several years ago when I studied under him, and his tutelage was just so amazing to me. And he's the one that really took me to that place to help me understand where that happened. And, sadly, Glenn passed to the spirit world this past May. He was not well. And I just feel very privileged to be able to work with him and other teachers, that are at the college, and I know you and I both know Minister Matthew Smith, who has also been very paramount in my development. So
yes. No, but I want to ask you something though.
Yeah.
Because I've heard you say this before. Now you say Glenn Edwards took you to that place for you where they meet. Can you explain that to the listeners? Because they're probably sitting there going, well, what is that?
It's right. And it's a very much trial and error process. And, because when we're sitting in stillness every day to build that relationship, we're not working as a communicator at that point.
Right.
We're just trying to understand what our soul power feels like, what spirit's soul power feels like, and what the blending of those two things feels like together. That's the purpose of the sitting. But then when I started to work as a communicator, I really do believe that when I first started to get my arms around my mediumship, I believe that I was probably reading people psychically and getting information about their loved ones from their psychic energy.
Gotcha.
And so as I continue to experiment with this, and Glenn is the one that really explained to me in a very good way about how mediumistic energy is a higher vibration than psychic energy, because psychic energy will have a heaviness and a density to it because it has a physical component.
Yes.
Where mediumistic energy, there's no physical component involved. It's pure spirit. So it's a higher vibration. It moves much faster. And mediumistic energy should energize the medium, whereas psychic energy can sometimes tire the medium based on, their level of development and whatnot. So and when I finally understood that and started to experiment with that, now I know where that meeting place is and what that energy feels like for me, and it energizes me. And I am just wound up like an 8-day clock particularly when I'm doing a platform demonstration and I've got 60, 70 people sitting in front of me. It just gets me to that feel good place. And I can actually stay in that power for about hour and 15 minutes, and then I can feel myself start slipping out of that power after that time frame, because you can only keep yourself in that mediumistic energy for just a period of time. And, I think when I was in Houston last month, I felt I was kind of proud of myself because I took myself a little farther. I think I stayed in that power for about 90 minutes when I did my demonstration down there. So, it's very hard to explain that to somebody. You can explain it, but then they have to apply it and be practical with it.
Right.
And Glenn was just able to, he just made me and helped me understand that. And we, when I was working with him back in 2012, we did a lot of sitting. I mean, he would have us come in the mornings and, sit for 20, 30 minutes. And then we'd come back from lunch and he'd have us do it again. And then in the evening, he'd have us do it again. So it really helped me understand that power and where that convergence between me and spirit took place. And again, it's a hard thing to describe, but people have to start working with it in order to understand it, because it's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
Where your convergence with spirit is going to be very different than what mine is,
Exactly.
Right. So it's just, trial and error and experimentation.
Gotcha. Now, I think one of the other things that really hinders new mediums is they have a tendency to kind of really judge what they're doing and kind of put themselves down,
Yeah, it's what we have to understand is that the information is not for us to comprehend. It's for the sitter to comprehend, because we are there for spirit. Spirit is there for the sitter. They're not there for us. They're there for the person to whom they're trying to communicate with. And we're just the conduit of that information. And so therefore we don't need to understand it. And, if we're getting a piece of information and consciously we are trying to comprehend what that means, that will knock you out of that power quicker than anything.
Exactly.
And because the subconscious connection is where that communication is taking place. And if we bring our conscious mind into that, then that connection is going to drop. And we're just going to be all in the conscious mind, and we're going to lose that connection with spirit, and it's going to go away altogether. So, I have learned to not judge the information or try to understand it. I just need to convey it.
Right. And another, I have an example of, I used to work with somebody, and um, we would do these readings together, and then all of a sudden, I mean, they would say, "Oh, that afterwards, that was the most horrible reading." Do you know? It just was, and I'd be sitting there going, I'm like, okay, it wasn't the smoothest reading that you've ever done, but the person knew exactly who you were talking about.
That's right.
They knew where you were talking about. And I was like dinging off this thing. And it's kind of like you have to remember that it's not about you and how you're doing. It's about the sitter and they're meeting their needs, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
So we're coming into another commercial break. You're on the OMTimes Radio Network, live with Lisa Phoenix and my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Welcome back, everybody. You're live with Lisa Phoenix on the OMTimes Radio Network and my special guest, David Scott, Intuitive Medium. David.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
We're back.
We are indeed.
So if you could really talk to let's do this in two things. One, if you could really talk to the inspiring mediums out there, what kind of advice would you give them?
To find a reputable circle to sit in. And, you know, we need a circle that's, you know, you need a circle that's really focused on active mental mediumship. You know, of course, that's what we're talking about today. There are other forms of mediumship, of course, but, you know, most that people understand is the active mental form, you know, with people like, you know, John Holland and those folks, you know, that people are most familiar with. So you want to find a reputable circle that focuses on that. You know, there's so many different things out there right now for people to explore, but if they really want to focus in on, you know, their active mediumship, then they need to find a reputable circle that is, you know, that is really looking at that and focusing on that.
Now, you've set up a lot of circles, haven't you?
I do. I have a circle here locally in the DFW area, and we meet 3 times a month. And I've got a wonderful, amazing set of students that have progressed so amazingly. And, to be able to be a circle leader and a teacher of sorts, and to watch people develop is so inspiring to me, and it's so comforting to me to watch them get more comfortable with communicating with spirit. Because, a lot of people will come into a circle and there's fear associated with this, because it's the unknown. It's not tangible. You can't touch it. You can't hold it. And, when people start to develop and understand, that convergence of them with the spirit world, it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And I have just been so blessed to have some amazing, loving students that continue to come to my circle. And I just feel very privileged, to be able to do this work and to have this development circle. And it's just amazing.
Do you help people set up other circles?
I have not.
Gotcha.
I did have one student that was coming to me continuously, and she eventually went off and started her own circle in a different part of town,
Gotcha.
which I thought was fabulous.
Yeah.
So, I encourage people who feel like that, that they have, and of course she's been over to the college and studied over there as well. And, I feel that when people are ready and they feel that they have the correct knowledge to go out and do that, I encourage that, because I can't teach everybody. We got to have
really?
Other people out there.
What do you mean?
We got to have people going out in the world, and helping people understand. And
okay, so first they're finding a circle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's next?
Understand how you work. And of course, that is what comes with the sitting and everything that we've talked about in the trust thus far. Because, as you well know, people are going to work differently. Right. And we have to understand what our psychic gifts are, what our perceptive states are, how we get the information, and stick to that and develop that. Me be very clairvoyant and clairaudient, I try to work with those things quite a bit. And I also try to work with things that I don't feel are my strongest perceptive states, such as clairsentience and those kind of things. So I try to work with those and make those stronger as well. And, you don't want to get yourself, and this is a very touchy subject that I'm getting ready to go into, because there's so much philosophy out there. There's so many different belief systems out there. But you don't want to get yourself trapped in delusion either. Right. You want to be able to understand, am I truly getting the information from spirit, or is it my conscious mind, or is it my imagination? And as we develop, we have to move through those things and separate them and understand which is which. And that does take time sometimes, as you well know, to move through all of that and gain an understanding of that. But, I see so many people, and again, another touchy subject here, don't let your ego get in the way, because you cannot be egotistical with this work. It's very much a service to spirit. It's not really about you. Right. You understand, it is in a way, but it's more about you being of service to the spirit world and providing that service to them to communicate with other people. And I try to keep my focus on that with my own development. And, I feel very blessed because I've been able to bring some very detailed messages to people with names and dates and places, and that kind of thing. And of course, we do want to be good, but I have to give that kudos to the spirit world. They're the ones that are helping me understand that information. And I'm giving that information to the sitter, and it's blessing the sitter, and it's providing comfort and closure to them, and it amazes me as to what spirit will do to get that information across. They're just so intelligent with that.
Can you give us a couple examples?
Several years ago, I did a benefit for breast cancer. I had one of my students, her name was Lori Ann, and she invited me over to her home, and I did a platform demonstration there to a group of people. And long story short, I brought through a gentleman that was a teacher. I brought through a student to him who had passed and that he was very connected to and very close to with a teacher-student relationship.
Gotcha.
And he worked as a football announcer at the high school, and, Spirit was showing me a homecoming game. And I saw my homecoming from high school is what they were using to convey this piece of information to me. And I, talked to this man about this, gave him this information, and he validated every piece of it. And it made him very, very emotional as well, And I said, I'm just seeing high school homecoming. I said, I feel like her death has something to do with this time frame in her life and that particular event. We went through that, and long story short, the girl died in a car accident on the night of the homecoming game.
Oh,
so she used that. She knew that man would. She knew he would understand that. So she gave me that piece of information, and I thought it was so beautiful to be able to bring that to him. And of course, it was a lovely piece of information, and I was very proud of myself to be able to bring that. But I have to give that kudos to that soul. She's the one that, and that's just how intelligent spirit is. And she's the one that brought that to me to tell him, so that she could communicate with him.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think a lot of people don't realize the intelligent factor of spirit.
Oh, I know.
It's just, and you also have to understand, people get on this thing too. It's like, well, they tell me about this and that and whatever. And you know what? They're working because you don't have all day but they also understand the medium's capacity to hold the level of energy. So they come up with like shortcut ways to get what it is to trigger that thought in the sitter so that it's kind of, when you really think about it, it's kind of pretty intricate how they weave and work to make this all happen. It's not just poof.
You're right. They're very smart about what they're doing. They're going to use things in your subconscious, that experiences that you've had to convey a piece of information to someone else in another way, i.e. this homecoming dance thing or this homecoming game thing. And, they just blow me away with their intelligence. And I think as I move through my own development and the closer that I feel like I get to them when I'm working with them, it just amazes me even more, because then, my information and my accuracy starts to get better, the more that I develop. And it just shows me that they're like, okay, well, David is going to understand this, so I'm going to give him this, and it's just amazing to me how they work. And I think people sometimes do take that for granted. I think sitters take that for granted, and I think that students sometimes take that for granted. And I'm not saying they do it in a conscious way. I just don't think they really don't really have a deep understanding of how intelligent the spirit world is.
Right.
And they just amaze me, and I'm just feel so blessed to be able to do this work. You know?
And as you were saying that, it just kind of triggered in me too. I also think it's a really good idea for up and coming mediums to kind of really read about, the mediums of the days of old.
Absolutely.
I just think that it provides such a richness and an addition to, to know the background and to know the philosophy. And I just, that triggered that when we were talking about the intelligence of spirit. Now, David, we're kind of running low on time here. So again, I'd love it if you would tell everybody like how you're available, what you do, what kind of readings you give,
Yeah. So on my website, if you go to davidscottpsychic.com, go to my mediumship page, it talks about my process there and how I work and the types of sittings and readings that I provide. I also have a calendar of events on my webpage, on my events workshop page, and there's a calendar there that will have all of the events and the things that I am doing. We're getting into the holiday time, so I probably won't be doing any workshops here for the remainder of the year, but I am going to try to do a beginner's workshop, which is a one-day workshop here in the DFW area sometime after the holidays, because I've had some people ask, when are you going to do that again? So I feel very blessed that they've asked. So I'm going to try to ramp up a beginner's workshop the first part of the year and just see where the year takes me.
No, that's great. And again, they can contact you for individual Skype readings and
absolutely, and
all that other wonderful, wonderful stuff and service that you offer. And then you will be having some events coming up next year though.
Correct.
So that's something that everybody should look forward to. And David, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. And
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Lisa. Thanks.
And thank you for helping all of us grow and expand. As I mentioned to all of you in Radioland, please visit David's website, www.davidscottpsychic.com. I want to thank all of you again for hanging out with us today. If you want further information about the Live with Lisa Phoenix radio show, please visit my page on the OMTimes Radio Network or contact me at my website at lisaphoenix.net. Or you can just send me an email at info@lisaphoenix.net. I would love it if you would go to my website once again, lisaphoenix.net, and sign up for my Intuitive Insights newsletter, which will also add you to my mailing list. And please like me on Facebook. Live with Lisa Phoenix is on every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific